Hello everyone, welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah here. We are holding a Mishnah Berurah Chelik Gimel, and Mirtz Hashem today we will be learning Daf Samachay Amud Aleph. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Shabbos. We pick up today on the very top line of Samachay Amud Aleph, the final sif in Siman Reish Pei Vav, Sif Hey. Our learning should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael, Hanasunim Batzara Bashivya, Ha'imnim Bein Bayom Ubein Bayabasha, Hamakam Yirachem Alehem, V'yetzieh Mitzara L'Rvacha Me'afela La'ira Mishibud L'Geula, Hashta Bagolo V'zman Kariv and Amar Amen. Our learning should be a schus Refuah Shalema for Moshe Meir ben Esther Fravel, for Tzvi ben Leah Miriam, and for Daniel ben Naomi. Our learning should also be a schus for Yisrael ben Rachel, Yonasan ben Michal, and Yoel ben Michal. The Rebbeinu Shalom should watch over them together with all of our brothers and sisters who find themselves in harm's way, b'chol makom shehem. So here in Siman Reish Pei Vav, we've been discussing the halachas that govern Tfilas Musaf, the Musaf section of the davening Shabbos morning. We hear at the last sif in Siman Reish Pei Vav, says the Mechaber in Sif Hey. B'Shabbos v'Yom Tov, on Shabbos and on Yom Tov, Ein Oimrim Baruch Hu Achar Kaddish Basra. We do not say Baruch Hu es Hashem HaMavarach, and have the tzibur answer Baruch Hashem HaMavarach L'Olam Vayed after the last Kaddish at the end of davening. And the Rabbah interjects Va'ayin Le'el Siman Kuf Lamed Gimel. What's this speaking of? Well, first let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah's Katan Tes Vav, Va'ayin Le'el Siman Kuf Lamed Gimel, where the Mishnah Berurah just tells us Beramah. The Ramah is sending us back to his own words in Siman Kuf Lamed Gimel, Desham Nispar Heitev Din Zeh, where this halacha is discussed in greater detail. Okay, what's at play over here? Well, we learned back over there that there was a minhag that at the end of davening, after the last Kaddish at the end of davening, the Chazan would say Baruch Hu. Why would the Chazan say Baruch Hu? Because unfortunately, there were people who came late to davening. And people who came late to davening missed Baruch Hu. So in order so that the entire tzibur should have the schus of hearing Baruch Hu and answering Baruch Hashem HaMavarach L'Olam Vayed, in some kehillas they instituted that at the end of davening, the Chazan would say Baruch Hu, the tzibur would say Baruch Hashem HaMavarach L'Olam Vayed, so that even the latecomers would have a Baruch Hu. Says the Mechaber over here that you should know, even in locales where they had that minhag, you don't do it on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Why don't you do it on Shabbos and Yom Tov? Very practical reason. On Shabbos and on Yom Tov, davening is longer. Also, davening starts later on Shabbos and Yom Tov, generally speaking. So we assume that more people will come on time. I hope that that's a good assumption. We assume that most people will come on time. And even the people who come late, on Shabbos and on Yom Tov, there's a lengthy laning. On Shabbos, you have 8 aliyahs, the regular 7 aliyahs, and the aliyah of maftir. On Yom Tov, you have 5 regular aliyahs, and then the 6th aliyah of maftir. And by each aliyah, you have Baruch Hu. So the thinking goes that on Shabbos and Yom Tov, you don't have this concern. Surely on Shabbos and Yom Tov, people will come at least on time for Kriyas HaTorah, and they'll get a Baruch Hu, and therefore there's no need to have this Baruch Hu at the end of davening. That concludes Siman Reish Pei Vav. Let's move on to Siman Reish Pei Zayin. I'm telling you, it's unbelievable to see that we're already holding a Daf Samachay Amud Aleph in Chelik Gimel of Mishnah Berurah. Wow. Okay. Siman Reish Pei Zayin. Nichum Avelim Ubikar Chaylim B'Shabbos. The halacha of Nichum Avelim, going to be Menachem and Oval, going to visit somebody who is sitting Shiva on a lost relative, Ubikar Chaylim, or going to visit somebody who's sick on Shabbos, Ubay Sif Echad, and here we have one Sif. Says the Mechaber Sif Aleph, Yechaylim Lenachem Avelim B'Shabbos. You're allowed to go be Menachem and Oval on Shabbos. V'chein Yechaylim Levaker Es HaChayla. You're also allowed to go visit an ill person on Shabbos. Now, what's the chiddush over here? Well, the truth is that the Gemara in Shabbos on Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph says, B'koishi hitiru chachamim. With great difficulty, the chachamim were matir, they allowed for somebody to go be Menachem Oval and for somebody to go be Mevakeh Chayla on Shabbos. Why did it take great difficulty to be matir this? Because it's very unpleasant often to go be Menachem Ovel or to be Mavaka Chayla. Sometimes when somebody goes to be Menachem Ovel, he gets overtaken with sadness. He goes to be Menachem Ovel. Now, the truth is that it really shouldn't be that way, and we'll talk about that a little bit in greater detail when we see the Mishnah Berurah. Think about it. What does it mean to go be Menachem Ovel? It means to go console the Ovel. It doesn't really mean to go cry together with the Ovel and make the atmosphere in the Shiva home even worse, right? You're really going there to be Menachem the Ovel. But the fact is that when you go to be Menachem Ovel, you think about the person who's been lost, and it could bring a certain degree of sadness. When you go to be Mavaka Chayla, you see somebody who you care about who's suffering, and over there, you're mamish watching suffering, and you want to be mispalel, you want to daven that the Rabbeinu Shalom should bring a refuah shalema to the chayla, which you're also not allowed to do on Shabbos. Why? All for the same reason. You're not allowed to be mitzdayer on Shabbos. What happens when you go to be mispalel for an ill individual? You cry. You feel the suffering of the ill individual. You beseech the Rabbeinu Shalom that the Rabbeinu Shalom should be mezakeh the chayla with the refuah shalema. All of this involves tsar, which is inappropriate for Shabbos. So therefore the Gemara says, Bekoishi hitiru, with great difficulty, they were matir that you should be allowed to be mavaka chayla and be allowed to be menachem ovel on Shabbos. So this is why the Mechaber has to tell us over here, Achidish, yecholim lenachem avelim b'Shabbos, you can go be menachem ovel b'Shabbos, because yitiru, they were matir it. V'chein yecholim levaka chayla, and also you can go be mavaka chayla. However, continues the Mechaber, v'lo yoymar loy kederech she'oymar loy b'chayl. However, you should not speak to the oval or to the chayla in the same way that you normally would. Normally, you would go to be menachem oval, and you would say, Hamokaim yenachem eschem. Hamokaim, the Rabbeinu Shalom, we call the Rabbeinu Shalom Mokaim. Mokaim means place. Why do we use such a funny appellation for the name of the Rabbeinu Shalom, Mokaim, place? Because the Rabbeinu Shalom is Mikoimai Shel Olam. You see, like this, you speak about the world, or you speak about the universe, and you speak about the universe as being the place, the physical dimension that incorporates everything inside of it, right? You are located somewhere inside the universe. There's a person could stop and think, oh, I'm talking about the Rabbeinu Shalom. Is the Rabbeinu Shalom also somewhere inside the universe? No. That would mean that the universe, so to speak, is containing the Rabbeinu Shalom. The Rabbeinu Shalom is not contained by anything. Ein loy guf, ein loy demusa guf. The Rabbeinu Shalom doesn't have any physical properties. Nothing can contain him. He's not inside of anything. If anything, the universe, so to speak, is inside the Rabbeinu Shalom. I don't mean it's inside the Rabbeinu Shalom. The Rabbeinu Shalom doesn't have an inside and an outside. But everything is subjugated to the Rabbeinu Shalom. So when you talk about a place, the Rabbeinu Shalom is not in a place. If anything, the place is in the Rabbeinu Shalom. So we refer to the Rabbeinu Shalom as being Mikoimai Shel Olam. So normally when you go to be Menachem Ovel, you say Hamokaim, the Rabbeinu Shalom, Yenachem Eschem, or Oischa, the Rabbeinu Shalom should console you, amongst all the other mourners of Tzion and Yerushalayim. So you're being mispalel, you're davening to the Rabbeinu Shalom, that the Rabbeinu Shalom should bring consolation to the Oval. That's inappropriate to do on Shabbos, because again, we're being mispalel to the Rabbeinu Shalom, we're beseeching the Rabbeinu Shalom that he should bring aid and consolation to this mourner. That's inappropriate for Shabbos, because again, that could bring about tsar to the one who's being mispal. When you go to Mivaka Chayla, you go to the Chayla and you wish him a refuah shalema. So you're benching him and you're davening that the Rabbeinu Shalom should give him a refuah. That's inappropriate for Shabbos. On Shabbos, we don't cry out to the Rabbeinu Shalom to help us with anything. That's inappropriate to Shabbos. It takes away from the simcha of Shabbos. We're acknowledging that we have a problem and we're begging the Rabbeinu Shalom to help us. That's inappropriate for Shabbos. Therefore, says the Mechaber, you cannot speak to them the same way you would during the week. Ella, rather, what do you say to a chayla? Ella Omerloi, what you say to the chayla is, Shabbos he mi lizoik. It is Shabbos, and therefore we must refrain from crying out. Milizoik means from crying out. Shabbos he. It's Shabbos. Milizoik. We have to refrain from crying out because that's inappropriate for Shabbos. Now, if you would stop over there, if you just go to the chayla who's suffering from his sickness and you tell him, Shabbos he milizoik, so the chayla is going to think to himself, oh, I'm getting penalized because it's Shabbos. Because it's Shabbos, people can't be mispal on my behalf. So now maybe it's going to take me an extra 24 hours to get better. No, chas v'chalila. You tell the chayla, Shabbos he milizoik. It's Shabbos, and therefore we have to refrain from crying out, but, or refuah krayvalavai. But the refuah will come shortly. Now, you're not davening, or refuah krayvalavai. You're not asking the Rabbeinu Shalom, please bring about the refuah quickly. No, you're not doing that. You're stating a fact. Or refuah krayvalavai. Don't worry. Shabbos is like it's Shabbos, so we can't cry out. Or refuah krayvalavai. But don't worry. The refuah is going to come quickly. And continues the mechaber. There are another several words that we say. Verachamav mirubim. The Rabbeinu Shalom's rachmanis is great. V'shivsu b'shalayim. And therefore, chayla, rest peacefully. It's Shabbos. Bar Shabbos bar menucha. So we're telling the chayla, if you look at the entirety of our statement to the chayla, yes, we have to refrain from crying out because it's Shabbos, but refuah krayvalavai, the refuah will come shortly, and don't worry, the Rabbeinu Shalom has plenty of rachmanis, rachamav merubim, v'shivsu b'shalom, and therefore you should rest peacefully. In other words, daganish, don't worry, the refuah is going to come very, very shortly. Now, the mechaber tells us what you should say to the chayla when you're mavaka chayla. But the mechaber does not tell us what you should say when you go to be menachem avel. So again, when you go to be menachem avel, normally you say, Hamokim yinachem eschem, the Rabbeinu Shalom should console you, b'saych sharav elitzion v'Yerushalayim, amongst all the other mourners who are mourning for Tzion and Yerushalayim. So again, you're being mispalel that the Rabbanan should give him consolation. We can't say that on Shabbos. So what do we say instead? The Mishnah Berurah is going to tell us. Let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Cotton Aleph, Yecholim. Armina Gemara, the Gemara tells us that Shabbos Yud Beis Amid Beis, Bekoishi Hitir Lanachem Avelu Mulavak Chayla b'Shabbos. It was with great difficulty that the Chazal made it permissible for us to go be Menachem Ovel or Mavaka Chayla on Shabbos. Valkain, and therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, Lo Yafe Oisin Oisan, it's not a good thing that some people do. Shekol Yemei Shavua Ein Holchin, they don't go be Mavaka Chayla or go be Menachem Ovel during the week, Rak b'Shabbos, they wait for Shabbos. In other words, what the Chavetz Chaim is saying is, we have over here Siman Reish Pei Zayin, where the Mechaber says, yes, you're allowed to be Mavaka Chayla. You're allowed to be Menachem Ovel on Shabbos. But remember what Chazal say, because she hitiru. They were only matter this with great difficulty. So don't go ahead and refrain from being Mavaka Chayla or Menachem Ovel during the week because you say to yourself, I don't really have time during the week. You know what, I'll do it on Shabbos when I have plenty of time. No, because she hitiru. If you could do it during the week, do it during the week. Don't hold off until Shabbos. Ice cutting base. You don't speak to the oval or to the chayla kederech she'omer lo b'chayil the same way you speak to him during the week. Explains the Mishnah Berurah, why not? The mitzar, because that would cause you tsar, habechi, and it will arouse in you a need to cry to Asar b'Shabbos, which is forbidden on Shabbos. You're going to go talk to the chayla, and you're going to be mispaled that the Ramah should give him a refuah shalema. You're going to see him suffering. You might start crying from this on Shabbos. You're not allowed to do that. You go to be Menachem Ovel, and you go Hamokim Yinachem Eschem, and you're wishing that the Rebbe should bring him consolation, and you're seeing the suffering, the mourning that he's in. It might arouse in you a need to cry, a desire to cry and mourn. That's inappropriate for Shabbos. So don't speak to him that way. Ice cut and gimel, so what should you do? The Mechaber only addresses what you should say to a chayla. He doesn't address what you should say to an oval. What by nicham avelim, what should you say to the oval? Very similar to what you say to the chayla. What you should say is Shabbos hi milanachem, It's Shabbos, and therefore it's inappropriate for me to console you the way I would during the week. The way I would during the week is I would say, but that's inappropriate for Shabbos. But don't worry, the nechama will come shortly. So it's very, very similar. By the chayla, you say Shabbos himelizaik or refuah kreva lavai. By Nichem Abelim, you say Shabbos himelanachem the nechama kreva lavai. Says the Mishnah Berurah, v'yesh makilim, but there are those that are mekel, there are shoy loymar hamokim minachemcha, and they say that it would be mutter to say hamokim minachemcha, the Rabbi Shalom should console you, or hamokim minachem eschem v'sayshar v'lisin v'yushalayim, like we normally do to an oval. So there are those that are matir. Now, why are they matir? Why is this different than the chayla? So the truth is that what they say is there's a great difference. This comes from a Machzah Shekel on the Magen Avram. The Machzah Shekel says that there's a great difference between Nicham Avelim and Bikar Chaylim. By Bikar Chaylim, you're going to visit somebody who's in the hospital, somebody who's bedridden, somebody who's very, very sick. You go to visit him, you're watching him suffer, and you're being mispalled that he should have a refuah shalema. So you cry. Right? You see people saying Tillim for a chayla, and they're mamish crying. They can't take the suffering of the ill individual. They want that the individual should get better, so they cry to the Rabbeinu Shalom. So by Bikar Chaylim, we're afraid that if you talk to the chayla the regular way, and you wish him a refuah shalema, and you daven for him to have a refuah shalema, you may very well come to cry, and that is inappropriate for Shabbos. Nicham Avelim is different. By Nicham Avelim, like I said earlier, it's called Nicham Avelim, going to console the oval. You're not going to the Shiva house to sit and cry together with the oval. You're not going to the Shiva house to sit and cry amongst and to wallow in misery and in suffering. That's not what you're doing. You're going there to console. You're going, even if you talk about the nifter very, very often, you go to a Shiva house, that's what they're busy doing. They're busy talking about the nifter. But it's an interesting thing. Very often, when you go to a Shiva house, especially if it's a few days into the Shiva, you see a lot of smiles. Why? Because everybody's discussing delicious memories and precious memories. Let's remember, we're not being mispalled that the nifter should come back. The nifter is not coming back until Tchias HaMeisim. So we're not crying out, there's a situation that we want to rectify. The nifter is gone. To a certain extent, there's almost a celebration of the life of the nifter. People talk about such precious memories that they have of the nifter and special times that they had with the nifter. Yeah, they give a krechts. After they smile, they say, yeah, krechts, we lost it now. We're not having it now. But it's not that same fear that being menachem the oval and saying Hamaki menachem eschem itayshar v'lisiv Yerushalayim is going to be ma'or in you a desire to cry the same way as if you go to a chayla and you wish him a refuah shalema. Kasab the Pri Megadim writes, in baha oval lebeis hakneses achar amiras mizmar shir liyoyim hashabbos. Let's pause here for a second. Very often you'll see that on Erev Shabbos by davening, you'll have an oval, somebody who's sitting Shiva, right? So all week, he's home in the Shiva home. They make a minyan in the house for the Shiva. Now comes Shabbos. Shabbos, there's no Shiva home. You don't go to somebody's house to be Menachem Oval on Shabbos. He doesn't have to stay in the house on Shabbos. Ein Avelis B'Farhesia. So the oval comes to Shul on Shabbos. So Erev Shabbos, it's not Shabbos yet. It's Erev Shabbos. So let's say the daven mincha. Let's say the oval davens mincha in shul. The oval davens mincha. Very often the minig is they'll start Kabbalah Shabbos, but before they're actually makabel Shabbos, before Bay V'Shalom, or before Mizmar Shil Yom Shabbos, when the actual Kabbalah Shabbos takes place, they'll give a clap and they'll say Nicham Avelim. Everybody will turn to the oval or walk over to the oval. Hamaki Menachem B'Shem Shar V'Elisiv Yerushalayim. And then they go ahead and they're Makabel Shabbos. So this way, everybody was B'kayim the mitzvah of Nicham Avelim, and they did it before Shabbos. Shabbos didn't start yet. We're assuming it's not yet the Zman. The Zman of Shabbos didn't come yet. It's not Shkia yet, or a little bit before Shkia, Tais for Shabbos. And they didn't say Bay V'Shalom, they didn't say Mizmar Shir. So they were not yet Makabel Shabbos. The Mishnah Berurah is addressing over here, what if the oval shows up in Shul after Kabbalah Shabbos? What if the Oval walks into Shul after B'rei V'Shalom, after Mizmor Shir? So says the Mishnah Berurah, in Ba Oval L'Beis HaKnesses Achar Amiras Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos, if the Oval shows up after Kabbalah Shabbos, which the Mishnah Berurah says is Mizmor Shir, nowadays a lot of the place can say it's B'rei V'Shalom, Shuv Lo Yikra Shamish Tzu'u Neged Oval. Now the Gabbai should not give a clap and say Nicham Avelim, because now it's too late. Now it's Shabbos. De'en lahaskar avelus b'farhesia. You're not allowed to bring up avelus. You're not allowed to mention the avelus publicly b'farhesia on Shabbos. You're not allowed to do that. Nevertheless, leilech ba'atzmoi loy loymer Shabbos hi milanachem. But if after davening, if after Ma'ariv, you want to walk over to the Oval in Shul and say what we've said over here, Shabbos hi milanachem, it's Shabbos, so I have to refrain from being Menachem Oval. V'nachama krev, you're allowed to do that. Because like we just learned, you are allowed to be Menachem Oval on Shabbos. So that you could do, but to do it before Hesia, that we don't do. Let's just see the words of the Ramah here to close out the Siman. Says the Ramah in the last line of Siman Reish Pei Zayin, Haga, V'yesh oimrim de'ein tzarech loymar, v'rachamov merubin v'chulei v'chein nohagu. So if you look back, in the words of the Mechaber said, what do you say to a chayla when you go to be mavaka chayla on Shabbos? You say, Shabbos-i melizaik. It's Shabbos, so I have to refrain from crying out. Or refuah krayv alavai. The refuah will come shortly. V'rachamav merubim. You should know that the Rabban Shalom has tremendous mercy, tremendous rachmanus. V'shivsu b'shalom. And therefore you should rest peacefully on Shabbos. Says the Ramah, some people only have the minhag to say the first part of that phrase. They just say, Shabbos hi melizak refuah krev alavai. They don't say, V'rachamav merubim v'shivsu b'shalom. Why not? So the truth is that both of these come from the Gemara in Shabbos. The Gemara in Shabbos on the bottom of Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph, over there the Gemara brings down from a Brisa, the Gemara has the phrase that when you go to be Menachem Oval, you say, when you go to be Mavaka Chayla, you say Shabbos hi melizak or for Krev Alavai. Doesn't say the rest. It doesn't say V'racham of Merubim v'shivsu b'shalom. On the top of Yud Beis Amud Beis, the Gemara brings down a memra from what's his name? Shavna, I think it's Shavna Ish Yerushalayim. Well, I don't like quoting things wrong. Grab a Shabbos. Shabbos, Yud Beis, Amud Beis. The Gemara brings, Shavna Ish Yerushalayim. The Gemara says over here, Shavna Ish Yerushalayim, was a Talmud Chacham. Shavna Ish Yerushalayim, Rashi says, Adam Gadol Haya b'Yerushalayim. There was a great person in Yerushalayim, Ushmai Shavna, his name was Shavna. So Shavna Ish Yerushalayim, b'knisasai, when he came in to visit a sick person, Omer Shalom. You came in to see a sick person, to be Mavaka Chayla, he would say Shalom Aleichem. So he mentioned Shalom. Ubi Yitziyasai Omer, and then when he was leaving the Chayla, he would say Shabbos hi melizai refuah krev alavai, v'rachamav merubin v'shivsu b'shalom. Like Rashi says, Shivsu b'shalom, noichu b'shabbaschem l'shalom. You should rest peacefully on Shabbos. Now the Mefarshim explain that what Shavna Ish Yerushalayim was trying to accomplish was he wanted to sandwich the Shabbos hi melizai refuah krev alavai. He wanted to sandwich it between mentioning Shalom 2 times. So when he came in, he said Shalom Aleichem, so he got 1 Shalom. Then he said Shabbos hi melizak refuah krev alavai. Then he said V'rachamav merubim v'shivsu b'shalom. So again you have the word Shalom. Now the word Shalom over here, it has a dual meaning. First of all, Shalom is a name of the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's why Chazal had to be matir, one of the pshatim, that Chazal learned from Boaz that you're allowed to use the Shem Hashem to greet somebody. Because if you look in Sefer Rus, they used Hashem's name when they greeted each other. But Shalom is also the name of Hashem. So we say Shalom Aleichem, we're kind of invoking Hashem, the Rebbeinu Shalom. Shalom is a shame. Shalom also means peace. And Shalom also could be like a wish, where Shalom Aleichem, peace unto you. So it looks like what Shavda was trying to accomplish over here was Shabbos Ibelizik. It's Shabbos, so we're not allowed to cry out. But if we use the word shalom in a way, we're wishing you shalom. Now, we don't really want to be wishing you shalom because we don't want to be mispalel shalom, but shalom is also a name of Hashem. And, so it's kind of like he's squeezing in here the word shalom in a permissible way. What the Ramah is saying over here is the Mechaber is taking both Mamari Chazal from Shabbos. The one on Yud Beis Amud Aleph that says just Shabbos Shim Elizik Kufur Krav, and Shabdi Ishu Shalayim, who adds on V'racham Berubim V'shivsu B'Shalayim. The Ramah brings down from the Rambam, Yesh Aimrim De'ein Tzarech Loima V'racham Berubim. We don't have to follow Shavdi Ishu Shalayim, V'chei Noagu, and that indeed is the minig. Okay, that concludes Siman Reish Pei Zayin. Let's turn to Siman Reish Pei Ches. Din Tainus, the halachas of fasting, V'din Tainus Chaloim, and the specific din of fasting for the purpose of taking away from a bad dream on Shabbos. Uba Yud Sifim, and here we have 10 Sifim. Says the Mechaber Sif Aleph. Aser lehis anois b'Shabbos ad sheish shois. You're not allowed to fast on Shabbos, but not only you're not allowed to fast a full day on Shabbos, you're not even allowed to fast past Chatzos. The 6th hour, that's Chatzos, midday. So you're not even allowed to fast until Chatzos. So even a half-day fast, you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. Haggah, the Ramah says, this is true, Va'afilu loimeid umispalel. Even if you're davening, there was a very long davening. They had a very impressive chazan in shul, and a lot of Mishnah Berurahs, and the Rav had a very long drasha, etc., 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 etc. So had a very, very long davening, and then after davening, somebody sat down with his chavrus to chazer the week's Dirshu. So what was he busy with? He was busy with learning and davening. So he thinks to himself, okay, I'm pushing off the Suda, I'm not going to make Kiddush until after Chatzos. No, you're not allowed to fast past Chatzos on Shabbos. And the Ramah says, even if you're busy learning and davening, he brings down for the Mordechai, it's still also to fast past Chatzos on Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Aleph, Ad Sheishois, you're not allowed to fast past Chatzos. The Gam B'choil, the Mishnah Berurah gives a very interesting reason for this. And the Mefarshim, the Rishayim, Achrayim have different reasons brought down for this. What the Mishnah Berurah says is, the Gam B'choil, even during the week, Chazal tell us, ha'oichel achar sheishois, if somebody delays eating breakfast until after midday, heavy kizorik even lachemis. It's like throwing a stone into an empty flask, which accomplishes nothing. A flask is supposed to be holding some delicious beverages. Throwing stones into the flask, you have the accomplishment of having a nice full flask, but you can't do anything with it because you're not going to drink rocks or eat rocks, right? So you filled up the flask, but you didn't accomplish anything. So too with your stomach. You're hungry because you didn't eat breakfast and it's past chatzos. By eating, you might fill up your stomach with a good bagel and some scrambled eggs, but it's garnish vert. It's not worth anything because Chazal say that you're not going to get the benefit of the nourishment of that food. So the Mishnah Berurah is telling you over here, if even during the week, if you fast past Chatzos, now when you go eat, you're not accomplishing anything. Al Kain, therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, Nikra Kamai Tainus B'Shabbos. That's already called a tainus in the context of Hilchos Shabbos. Because, you're going to eat now after Chatzos. But we know that eating is not going to accomplish anything. That is completely inappropriate for Shabbos. That is called fasting on Shabbos because you didn't eat before Chatzos, and now what you're eating after Chatzos is garnish vert. It's completely worthless. So basically you fasted on Shabbos, and that you can't do. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, l'shem tainus. And if the reason you're not eating is l'shem tainus, if you're refraining from eating because you want to be fasting, afilu sha'achas aser. Forget till Chatzos. You're not even allowed to do that for an hour. So if somebody davened at a Vesikin minyan on Shabbos morning, Vesikin today, when I'm recording this year, was 7:02. So somebody davened at a Vesikin minyan, and he started davening at 6:25, and he finished davening at 8:45, and he says, "Oh, it's 8:45. It's early, and you know what? I want to fast. I'm not going to fast until Chatzos." So it's not pshat that he's not going home to make kiddush and he's not going to eat because he's learning daf yomi or whatever, or he's not ready to eat. No, really, I would go home and make kiddush now. But you know what? I'm going to go fast for 2 hours. L'shem tainus. I'm going to go fast for 2 hours now. So he's going to eat before 11 o'clock. Forget 12 o'clock. He's going to eat a good hour and a half before Chatzos. Right? But he's refraining from eating l'shem tainus. That says the Mishnah Berurah you're not allowed to do even for an hour. Even if it's before Chatzos, you're not allowed to do that. So l'shem tainus afilu shachas aser. Va'al kain. Therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, shaloi kedin oisin miktsas kehillas. It is shaloi kalacha, what some kehillas do. Shemisanim b'Shabbos atzamach l'chatzos, that they fast on Shabbos, but they don't fast past Chatzos. They fast till close to Chatzos. They fast till half an hour before Chatzos, ala gzeros. And they fast because Nebuch, there's tsaros in the world, and there's terrible gzeros on Klal Yisrael, maybe, chas v'chalila lo aleinu. So they want to fast, but they know that they're not allowed to fast until Chatzos. So they fast until a half hour before Chatzos, and then they eat. No, says the Mishnah, you're not allowed to do that, because you're refraining from eating l'shem tainus on Shabbos. You're not allowed to do that. V'im tam midi kainu tfilas musaf. Now, we learned yesterday that you're allowed to eat something light. You're allowed to have a light snack, an achilas arai, before musaf. Between shachris and musaf, you go ahead and make kiddush, you're allowed to have an achilas arai before musaf. Well, says the Mishnah Berurah, if you did that, if you had at least an achilas arai before musaf, then you're allowed to push off the suda beyond Chatzos, because you're not fasting anymore. You actually had an achilas arai. Says the Mishnah Berurah, this is a very important Mishnah Berurah here. All Mishnah Berurahs are very important, but I want to make note of this Mishnah Berurah here as cut and base. The Ramah said, it was the Ramah? Yeah, the Ramah said, the Mechaber said you're not allowed to fast until Chatzos. Said the Ramah, that's true even if you're busy davening and learning. You're still not allowed to fast till Chatzos. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut and base, u'maspal aser. U'lefi zeh. According to this, hashliach tzibur, achazin in shul, shemenagain, who's singing, ve'ein yotzid mi beis hakneses ad achar sheish, and now he stretched out davening, and they're not going to leave shul until after Chatzos, shaloi kahoigen, who? That is improper. Dare I interject over here? This is not only a problem if the chazan is singing and probing chazunis on Shabbos, is stretching out davening. It's also a problem when the people who have aliyas are making 16 Mishnah Berurahs, and the Gabbai lets them get away with it. And then they have, the Mishnah Berurah for Chaylim. Unfortunately, Nebuch, there's a lot of Chaylim. They have a Mishnah Berurah for Chaylim with 150 names. You got to figure out a way to do it faster. There are different eitzes to do it faster, whether you have multiple Gabbaim saying Mishnah Berurah, so you have the Mishnah Berurah and everybody says their names individually and interjects it, or everybody makes his own Mishnah Berurah together with the names, whatever it is. But there are eitzes, different minhagim, different kehillas of different ways of doing it. Speak to the Rav. But dare I say, all of these things that have the effect of stretching out davening and making davening very unpleasantly lengthy, and then not only that, not only the tzibura shabai, but then it also has the effect that people don't get home and they don't get to make kiddush until after Chatzos. Says the Chavetz Chaim shaloi kahayinu. It is improper. Ubefrat b'chayrev shayamim kitzarim. Certainly during the winter season, like it is now, where the day is so short, it is totally inappropriate. Umikoshkein b'yomtiv, and certainly on yomtiv. On yomtiv, sometimes this is even a bigger problem, because on yomtiv they put up the chazan to go daven. They get somebody with a beautiful voice to sing a beautiful howl, which is a wonderful thing. I am not against having a beautiful howl, but the gaboim and the chazanim have to have a mindset. They have to be paying attention to the clock and realizing when people are going to get out of shul. Now, the Mishnah Berurah says, when we koshkein b'yomtiv, certainly this is a problem on yomtiv. Why is it certainly a problem on yomtiv? So I just gave you one reason. Could be the Mishnah Berurah just means that it's often a bigger problem on Yom Tov. So koshkein, that you have to be cognizant of the problem on Yom Tov. But there's another reason too. And that is that on Yom Tov we have a special chiyuv, a special obligation. Yom Tov, the day is supposed to be chatzi l'Hashem, half for Hashem, the chatzi lachem, and half for you. What does that mean? We're supposed to divide up the hours of Yom Tov. Half of it is supposed to be spent in what we call lachem, for you, for the people. What does that mean? It means a geschmacke suda, a beautiful Yom Tov suda, maybe a nap. That's lachem. The chatzi, half of the time, is supposed to be l'Hashem. What's l'Hashem? Davening, being mispalel, Torah, learning Torah. That's mamish avodas Hashem, ruchnius, dvarim ruchniim. That's chatzi l'Hashem. Now, if you stretch out davening too long and you don't make it chatzi l'Hashem, you make it 3/4 l'Hashem between the davening and the daf yomi and the Dirshu chazara and everything else, right? So now people will look, oh, it's gewaldig. No, it's not chatzi l'Hashem and chatzi lachem. You took away the chatzi lachem. So therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, kol shkein, that it's a problem on Yom Tov to stretch it out. Milavad b'Rosh Hashanah, with the exception of Rosh Hashanah. This is based on a Bach. What's different about Rosh Hashanah? Well, Rosh Hashanah is Yom Adin. There are those that actually say it's a mitzvah to fast on Rosh Hashanah, despite the fact that it's Yom Tov. There are those that say that it's a mitzvah to fast on Rosh Hashanah. Therefore, we're not going to say on Rosh Hashanah that if you're davening on Rosh Hashanah, you're not allowed to fast past Chatzos. No. On Rosh Hashanah, you could daven until 3 o'clock in the afternoon and take a fast. Because on Rosh Hashanah, it's Yom Adin, it's okay. Now, the Mishnah Berurah softens his tone a little bit here at the end of the Mishnah Berurah. I think the Chafetz Chaim did not want to be kaira kitrig. He didn't want to be speaking negatively and kind of bringing a prosecution against those kehillas who run afoul of this halacha, and they do stretch out davening, and people get out after chatzos, and they end up fasting after chatzos. So even though the Mishnah Berurah opened up chelik Eis Cotton Bays, and he said that what they do is shaloi kahayinu, so the position of the Chafetz Chaim is very clear. He holds that it's wrong. You have to make sure that davening ends early enough. People should be able to get home and make kiddush before chatzos. Having said that, the Mishnah Berurah softens the blow a little bit, and he says, "Ube Elia Rabbah in the Elia Rabbah matzah smach lahakol beloimid umispal." You could find something to rely on to be makel by somebody who's learning and davening lihisachar adachar chatzos, to make kiddush and to first eat after chatzos. Ube bigdei yesha she'ala Mordechai, the Pirish bigdei yesha on the Mordechai Perikah with the Shabbos kasav gamkein shemutu lilmoidu lihispal ad chatzos, also says that if you're learning and davening, then you could fast until after chatzos. Now, there's different kulas that they bring over here. One very interesting kula that the Magen Avram brings down is the Magen Avram says, realize what we're saying over here. We're saying that you're not allowed to fast until when? Until the 6th hour. Okay? When we see halacha talk about the 6th hour, we know that means chatzos. The Magen Avram says there is a shita that says that in the context of this halacha, the 6th hour means the 6th hour after you got up in the morning. Because we're talking about fasting. Now, you don't really feel the fast the effects of the fact that you're fasting when you're sleeping. So we don't look at it that if you got up at 8 o'clock, so you can't fast until chatzos because it's the 6th hour of the day. No, it's 6 hours after you get up. So if you got up at 8 to go daven at 8:30 minyan, so 9, 10, 11, 12, 1. You got to 1 o'clock. You're not allowed to fast past 1 o'clock. So okay, so if you're sitting and you're learning or davening stretched out, but you're still going to get home before 1 o'clock, even though it's after chatzos, but it's within 6 hours of when you got up in the morning, that's okay. You combine that heter together with another heter, the bigdei yesha on the Mordechai, who says that there's a bazundere heter, there's another heter. You're sitting and you're learning, you're sitting and you're davening, okay, you're involved in learning, you're involved in davening, you're allowed to fast even past chatzos. You combine these two things together, you have a smach, you have something to rely on to be makel, if what you're involved in is davening and learning. But again, the Mishnah Berurah says clearly that it's not shaloi kahoigen, it's improper. Okay, let's try to do some sif bays over here. Sif Beis, 2 lines off the bottom in the Shulchan Aruch, Samachei Amid Aleph. Says the Mechaber. Yesh Aimer, there are those that say, Sha'adam shemazik loy ha'achila, if somebody is going to be harmed by eating is going to affect him negatively. It's mamish mazik loy. Yesh Aimer sha'adam shemazik loy ha'achila. And therefore, da'az oinig hu shaloi lechel. For this person, it's oinig Shabbos not to eat. If he eats, he's going to suffer. It's going to harm him. So for him, it's an oinig not to eat. So the azu oinig hu shaloi lechel, such a person lo yochal, he should not eat. That's oinig Shabbos for him. Oinig Shabbos for him is not to eat. Says the Mishnah Berurah, ois cotton gimel lo yochal. Says the Mishnah Berurah, v'kemat korav li'iser ha'achila. It could be that for him to eat would mamish be aser. Kevin shemishar sheyazik loy. Because for him, he's mishayir that eating him will be mazikim. Mazikim means it will harm him. So what? We want somebody to harm himself on Shabbos? In the name of Oinig Shabbos? The karas ala Shabbos Oinig? Go eat and suffer? No. So if you know that eating is going to harm you, then you're allowed to fast. Then don't eat. He brings this down from the Pri Megadim and the Tosefes Shabbos. Now, points out the Mishnah Berurah, v'hainu, but this is only true, im gam kezayis kosher lechol. That's only true if he can't even eat a kezayis. Even eating a kezayis is going to hurt him. Because if eating a kezayis won't hurt him, so eat a kezayis and be yotzei the Shabbos with a kezayis. V'ayel kamon b'siman reit tzaduk aleph, sif aleph, bahagah. Okay, we're going to stop over here. We'll continue with the Ramah next time. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The schus of limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. The Rabban Shalom should send Yeshua's, Refuah's, Parnasah, and Shidduchim to all those in need. We should be zeicher to see the Bias Kal Tzedek, B'meher of Yameinu, Amen. Be well.